Hello everybody, Dullahan here with a Dawn of War 3 vs 3 match running the Exodus mod. That's the mod I've created to rebalance the game in many ways. I haven't made a video about it yet, but I released it about a week ago. And then I went on a work trip, so I haven't been around to really talk about it since then. So I'm kind of going through some replays and getting some of looking at the early feedback of some of the changes. So this is just kind of a match. I was going to start this. We're going to see how this plays. I haven't actually seen any of this yet, so it's going to be interesting to see. So the big changes are a lot more hit points for objectives, like shield gens and turrets and stuff. So they're a lot stronger. Like 6,000 health for the shield gen. I don't understand. I have to really figure this out, how the hell the escalation phase stuff is affecting the hit points on these stuff, because like these are not set this high, but they have this much health, so there's some sort of multiplier effect going on in the files. I have not figured all that stuff out yet. Apologize if there's any construction noises. They're building a townhouse across from me, so there's a lot of stuff there. So the big thing is all the buildings and objectives and units are tougher. Units are tougher through infantry health upgrades or vehicle health upgrades, and then the buildings are just straight up tougher. So the other things I changed was like some just random balancings that I thought were important, like removing reducing the amount of crowd control, chain stunning stuff in the game, like making the war truck stun, like half a second instead of 2 seconds, that sort of stuff. Blind grenades are a little weaker. I nerfed tack damage a little bit, so they're down to 31 DPS. So they're a little bit weaker DPS wise, but their plasma guns got a bit of a buff. Their flamer also does a little bit less damage. Generators are a bit more durable. They got about double the health, and they build slightly faster. So I might actually, I don't know, I'm kind of experimenting here, right? The health is all experimental stuff. I haven't touched a lot of the elite stuff other than like some balance stuff, and some of that might be a little too much, some might be, perfect. So we're seeing still kind of a similar playstyle from this one team here. I haven't really gone through the players. It's too many players to go through, but there's a lot of people kind of giving this a try for me, which is awesome. And it's good to see some replays up. So attacks are a lot weaker. Scouts have a bit more damage, but they have weaker grenades. And I tweaked some other stuff. I tweaked a lot of the doctrines that are a bit overpowered right now. So basically what I tried to do is I just did a big balance pass on the popular overpowered stuff, and I changed some other stuff. And then the big change is the health changes. So we'll see how this plays. I'm curious to see how this is going to work out. If people are going to go, like you already got people going for the faster arsenal here, right? So maybe we'll see some early health upgrades from some of these players, because it is a much bigger upgrade. I forget what I changed it to, honestly, but it's like 25%, I think, for the first one. Ultimately, it's about like 75% total instead of like 30 or 40%, I forget. It's one of the things I really arbitrarily increased it for now, but once I actually see how it plays and decide if I want that to be like a permanent thing, it's going to be a bit more calculated, especially just to make things like proportional. My goal is to kind of make the also the other big changes. I made weapons teams cost some power, and I kind of tweaked some units, like assault marines do slightly more chainsword damage, their power swords do less damage. I don't know if I want to change the power swords, because that does seem like something that's going to end up really weak with everything being more durable. But, I don't want it to be as good as it was. Eventually, I kind of just want to make it a squad upgrade and just make it more powerful. I think that's preferable, kind of like the attack weapon upgrades. Listening posts haven't been touched. I don't know if I'm going to touch them. I feel like they're in an okay spot. But with more durable units, they're going to be a little bit easier to counter, of course. So my big concern is that forward bases are going to be a little too strong, especially with orcs with walk towers. Walk towers, I don't think I touched the hit points. No, walk towers are the same health, but I did change Beauty's command so that the shield only lasts for 10 seconds instead of the full 20 seconds. So it's still useful, but it's not going to stop you. Devastators do a bit more damage now, but they cost way more power. So I increased the power on basically everything that isn't just basic tax or sluggas. So like Devastators, Ludas, Dark Reapers all cost around 30 to 40 power. Devastators are the most expensive, but they also have the best damage and all that chat. Then I took Tank Busters and Las Cannons and then gave them a small amount of power cost, kind of like Shadow Specters. Shadow Specters have a power cost, right? So I wanted to make the those guys a bit less spammable. Like if you want to spam Tank Busters in the mid game, it's gonna be harder. And I wanted to really encourage people to use these plasma guns on tax, like because I've made videos before about how I was using them to great effect. Pushing tax into the weapon upgrades is a really great way of making the game more interesting that way. So far I haven't seen anyone getting the health upgrade yet. but they have a lot of money for it. So, I wonder how this would play if they just got it. But I wanted to make the fighting in the early game less about getting that shield gen and more about fighting over resources and territory and map control. Because one of my big beefs with Dawn of War 3, after I've been watching some Dawn of War 2 recently, and most of that is, fighting, someone retreats, and then someone goes, captures some points, does some eco damage, whatever, and rinse repeat, right? Plasma gas might actually be a little too strong, by the way, right now. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But you see how tough the building is, right? It's a lot harder to clear out these buildings. It gives you a lot more opportunity to defend this sort of stuff, and which is really what I wanted. Is I felt Dawn of War 3 was way too punishing if you were not in a position to defend. So I wanted to make it, if you want to attack, you're going to need the anti-vehicle stuff, and you're going to need to use your abilities. Something like, it was always kind of weird, because you would have structures like this that would last a really long time against, like, say, 3 tac brains shooting bolters at it, but then you have stuff like 2 tank busters will blow it up with, like, 1 second with 2 bomb squigs. So I wanted to try and normalize that a little bit, and something I still might consider doing is adding more damage types and armor types, to be more like Dawn of War 2, so like maybe heavy armor for Space Marines so they take less range damage and that sort of stuff. That's something I'm really considering because I feel like that is something they've oversimplified with this game, and I feel like that would add a lot of depth. I'm also considering making suppression more similar, like a lot more powerful, but I'm concerned to do that because there is no retreat mechanic, and so that might just end up being too powerful. So I just want to see how it plays right now. I feel like the weapons teams are pretty strong right now with damage-wise. Orcs are the one thing. I don't want to touch any orc damage because they have log bonuses and all that stuff. I really don't want to mess with their DPS, but I'm more willing to mess with Eldar and Space Marines. I buffed some DPS here and there for them. And, I think Eldar are probably going to be a little overpowered right now just because of the shields. But Diomedes does slightly less melee damage as well. I always felt when they reduced him from a 4-point to a 3-point, they never touched his damage. And his damage is insane. Like, he did 135 per hit, whereas Gabriel did about 90. So he was doing way more damage per hit than most things. I think he was actually one of the highest damage per hit heroes in the game. So, nowadays 3-point, he's more balanced to 3-point. I kind of wanted to make him a little less of a, like, his hammer was a little too good. I nerfed some more stuff with Gabriel. I think my main focus was the Orc Elites, just because I'm more familiar with them. So, like, I nerfed Commando Booby Traps, I nerfed Wazmaka's Tractor Beam, I nerfed Wazmaka's Orbital Scrap a little bit. Well, I wouldn't say I nerfed the Scrap. It was kind of a side buff, where it does less damage on a direct hit, but it does more AoE damage. So I think that ultimately makes it a more balanced ability, because before it would do, like, 500 damage on a direct hit or something ridiculous. Like, it was pretty damn good at, like, just obliterating squads, especially weapons teams, because they couldn't dodge it. So that kind of makes Wazmaka a little less effective that way. My only concern of him is he might actually end up a little underpowered. I don't know. I nerfed scrap turrets as well, and people are kind of thinking it's an over nerf because I basically reduced damage by half. But one thing to keep in mind is that they still have a property that causes units to take more damage when they're being hit by scrap turrets. They take, I think it's like 20%, 30% more damage, and then they get slowed down by about 20%. So that's something to keep in mind. So you can see there's a lot more just fighting rather than, like, shield gen stuff. I haven't actually watched a ton of 3 vs 3 or played it myself, but just watching this right now, I'm actually really liking how much of this is just people fighting constantly. Like, I feel like this is more what people wanted from Dawn of War 3. And there's not a lot of units just being wiped out so far, even though people aren't really getting those health upgrades just yet. So I think I'm kind of liking that. Actually, let's see if anyone got their health upgrades. We still don't have some health upgrades for most of these guys, which is, a little depressing, because those are really powerful. But this is kind of fun to watch, just the more fighting over, lots of more units on the field. Like, there's so many units here right now. It's pretty intense. I wish I could turn off the UI stuff, though, but... What if I had to note about these heavy cover bubbles is none of these ranged units are doing any damage to the units inside, but now that it gets destroyed. A lot of people have really criticized these heavy cover bubbles, and I always find that a little odd. Just because they basically serve the function of garrisons that were in Dawn of War 2 and Company Heroes, but the reason you needed them in Dawn of War 3 is because the garrisons in Dawn of War 2, you couldn't... For example, you had a lot of situations where melee units just couldn't do anything to units that were inside buildings, because they couldn't, shoot them. So buildings could be really obnoxious sometimes in Dawn of War 2, and I think this is a good solution, because this basically serves the same purpose. You take a lot less range damage, but then melee units can actually get in there and fight them. And I feel like that's a really good workaround for that mechanic. I just wish maybe they could have had some more cover. I don't know. I feel like there's too many units that have cover, right? Like, look, you have these big balls of units, and having them manually place cover. I don't know. I think they could have done some sort of middle ground, like maybe stealth cover. There would be patches of like cover, like craters or something that would give some damage reduction. They could have done something like that, or maybe high ground would give damage reduction. They could have done more that way. But yeah, these generators are a little bit more durable. Like they're not invincible by any means, but it's a lot harder just to kill them without being able to defend. I might even make them even stronger. I'm debating that just because I really don't like how in Dawn of War 3 that the generators, let's say someone attacks these generators up here, and you're over here, like you can't defend it. It's just dead, and it just pushes you to build these listening posts. And listening posts just end up like feeling like crap because, say, in Dawn of War 2, right, you wanted to capture a resource point. So you had to put a unit on it, and they spend like 5-10 seconds, whatever, decapturing it, and then spend 5-10 seconds capturing it again. Or if it was a power node, you would shoot the power node, and then you would decapture it and capture it, right? So the most time you ever spent getting new resources was about 30 seconds. But in Dawn of War 3, not only do you have to do all that, destroy the listening posts, decapture, capture stuff, but then you also have to build the generators, and that takes like a minute by default. And they're not producing any resources for that minute, so it ends up being like a good 2 minutes, a minute and a half to start getting resources from a captured point, and that's way more than enough time to go defend it. So it ends up being this weird situation where you see players just build listening posts on points just to deny resources in the mid to late game. Like someone will teleport a bone standing up here, capture it, build a listening post, that sort of stuff. I also changed the Weird Boy build a little bit. I don't know if this is working as I intended, but basically I reverted his attack to normal damage, and gave it AoE again. So hopefully that's working the way I want it to, because I liked that design originally. When they changed to true damage, they didn't buff the damage. So he ended up actually being the worst DPS of all the similar heroes, like Maka and Jonah, for example, very comparable spellcaster heroes. His attack was by far the weakest, and so hopefully making it AoE again makes it it makes it more unique, and two, it makes it stronger. Because I always felt like it's a little too weak. I nerfed Fist of Gork, so it has a 2-second cast time. That's one of those simple, really easy nerfs to make that ends up making it a much more smarter ability to use. What else did I change? I changed a lot of things about orc stuff, mainly. Knobs, this was quality of life stuff, so knobs have that throwing axe. And so I made that so that'll pass through their buildings now, which can look a little goofy sometimes, but it had an issue with getting caught up on stuff, and I really wanted to address that. You can see that longer cast time. You really have to, predict where your opponent's going to be now. But yeah, I think I'm gonna reduce the health on these production structures a bit, but I'm gonna make them a different damage type. So basically, I want to make them take roughly equal damage from anti-vehicle, or maybe slightly more from anti-vehicle and kind of a normal damage from infantry. And that way, you always have these weird situations where someone will get an elite like Jonah out, right? And Jonah just absolutely shredded these buildings. He would kill them in 20 seconds or less. And so I want to make this situation where you're not just wiping out production structures because you got a specific elite, or same with shield gens, like getting Deathwatch or Jonah, being able to wipe out the shield gens single-handedly. I never liked that. So I want them to be a bit more durable, so you have to actually either get to that stage of the game where you have anti-vehicle units, or you got more damage elites, or you have a larger army. So there's still elites like Assault Terminators. They still absolutely shred generators and turrets, and I do kind of want to push the game towards those mid-game elites, because you see a lot of these games where people use the 2 to 4 points, and then they maybe they take 1 7-point, but usually, granted, 3 vs 3 is going to be different from 1v1, but in 1v1 you see a lot of 12-point elite loadouts where they got a 2, a 3, and a 5 or something like that, and I wanted to address that a bit. Oh, so the other big thing I changed is anything that did percentage damage, I tried to reduce that. I think the only exception is I didn't touch Taldir's percentage damage, just because it's complicated. There's a lot of really complicated abilities in this game. Relic really went balls to the wall with making all these abilities do 7 different things. For example, Wasmaga's Tractor Beam. You can put a shield on your own units. You can put it on enemy units to give them damage and slow, or you could use it on scrap to jump to the scrap, or you could deactivate it, and it pulls whatever units on it back. Like, there's all this shit that's just really fucking complicated to, as someone who hasn't done a shit ton of Dawn of War modding before. I've dabbled a little bit, but I haven't really done a lot, and this is a learning experience that way. But, so because I'm learning that way, there's a lot of stuff that's just, I don't quite understand how it works yet. Like, escalation phases. There's a lot of stuff I'm going to change. This is version 0.1, right? So I'm planning, now that I'm back for about a week, for now anyway. And then I've kind of started in like a 7 days on, 7 days off rotation at work. So this kind of works out for my balance goals. Because basically I want to release an update roughly every week or so. Every 2 weeks. So the idea is I want to work on it, release it, and then, do some playtesting and go away for a week. And then have people play it for a little bit and see what, people think. And then further revise it from there. But I think I'm going to tweak the building's health a little bit. I'm not going to make them less durable, but maybe I will change it so they have a different armor type, so they don't explode to 2 bomb squigs and that sort of stuff, or like a Jonah or a commando booby trap, that sort of stuff. But still roughly the same durability to like infantry as in the base game. Maybe that's a good middle point. Log towers, I feel like they're okay. They're in a good spot. Now that BD's command isn't so good. Like, it's so good, but you still have lots of time to kill it. It just makes it a little harder to kill it. Easier to defend. I feel like that's a good middle point. I think the other thing I want to look at is the 2-point elites, because I feel like Deathwatch is leagues better than the other two because of his presence ability is way more useful because it lets you pop in your other elites wherever you want. Oh yeah, I also nerfed Deathstorm, so they have less range, so they're a lot easier to run away from, which is something I really wanted. But just because I always felt like they were too impactful. Like, in this kind of situation, most of these units are going to be able to run away, and they'll be okay. So, if you just use a Deathstorm without any units to support, they can just walk away. And they'll still take a ton of damage, but, they won't die outright. I think we are starting to see some health upgrades from some of these players. I'm not sure who. It's kind of hard to find their production structures here. But, yeah, Deathstorms are a lot less range now, so you have to be a lot more careful about how you place them. So they're more of a drop it and then support it, like stun units and keep them like trapped in there and that sort of stuff. So you see these ASMs, so they're not killing these generators in seconds. I feel like that's a really good change to the gameplay. I don't think I'm going to make them too much more durable, but I do like that it takes a bit more effort to harass generators like that, because I always felt like, certain, like, Space Marines always had the advantage with Assault Marines and Land Speeders because they were just so good at that stuff. And, like, you reached a point, too, you could get in a mid-game of Orcs, so we got, like, 5 Death Competers, you could just fly around and instantly nuke everything. So, I want to try and address that kind of small stuff. I want the late game to, you see situations where, like, a Predator dies in 2 shots to Taldir and stuff like that. I want to try and reduce those sorts of situations a bit and make the game a lot less, oh no, I screwed up and my entire army is dead, because I feel like that's, like, the big thing that people really didn't like about it. It's interesting seeing how committed to Deathstorms people are, because they're not actually, like, they're good, but they're not, We do have the Ironclad Dreadnought, which is really cool, but you can see the increased health on all these units. These elites are no longer army wipers, right? Like, they're still good, but they're not going to completely solo the army by themselves. And it was just something I really wanted to address. That said, I am going to do a balance pass on 7 to 9 point elites, because I don't want them to be useless. I still want them to be powerful, for sure. But I don't want them to, wipe out armies in seconds, or Jane Czar wiping out armies. Like, Jane Czar is still really good in this, because she still does a ton of damage, but maybe I would consider, like, changing elites a little bit, adding some sort of scaling mechanics so they can, some sort of upgrade maybe of some kind that just buffs them in the mid-game. I don't know. Or, like, buff them with each tier. Something like that, because I feel like they're going to fall behind the units really fast, which I don't know if that's a bad thing. But, I don't want them to be too weak, because I do like how the elites are, really impactful. I just don't like how they wipe out units, right? So I want them to be impactful without obliterating units single-handedly. I just do like Assault Terminus right now. I feel like I buffed them a little bit, so they should do AoE damage now. Although, to be fair, it's really hard to test if that's working. But they should do a little bit of splash damage. I kind of copied what the Wraithlord had. Wraithlord had a little bit of AoE, so they should do a little bit of AoE. And that'll make them a little bit better in melee. Yeah, but I also, Dreadnoughts, you see Dreadnought has like 3,000 health now. I forget what it has by default, but just making these units more durable, I feel like just makes the game a lot more fun for everybody, right? I feel like people want to see these fights last longer, and that was one of the big criticisms from a lot of people that are, I don't think Orc has actually upgraded his health here, so he's probably gonna get obliterated with all these units bunched up like this. But even then, he's still not. Yeah, I don't know. Like I just wanted to feel more like the fights were lasting longer, and that there was like a lot more action going on. And you see in this game, most of the fighting has just been in the middle of the map here. Like you can't really say one team or the other is definitively winning at this point, which I really enjoy. I'm debating changing the nukes a little bit. I don't know, because I kind of feel like that they're pretty balanced for the most part. The only thing I feel like that's a little imbalanced is the slow effect on the Eldritch Storm conduit is a little too good. It kind of like just makes units move like 0.85% or something ridiculously slow. And I feel like that's a little too intense. But I really like how Orbital and Rocks are balanced. And I really like how you can knock... I feel like the Eldar one's just a little too good. So maybe I'll address that. I'm debating just making the Storm, the passive Storm, just do no damage and just do a little bit of a slow. Or something like that. Like I don't want people to use it that way for sure. And I want them to use the conduit, and I want them to be very careful about how they use the conduit. So I don't want it to like massively slow down a big ass army. I just want it to do some good damage and stuff. So we'll see. I'm gonna. There's a lot of things I want to tweak, but right now I just want to really focus on making the game play well. Like if you're someone who didn't enjoy Dawn of War 3 for maybe you didn't like the lethality, you didn't like how fast the games were, something like that. That's what I'm hoping to address here. You didn't like how the elites just wiped out tons of units. I want to address that. That's my main focus. I feel like that's like the big thing that people really had a problem with the game. But it's hard for me to judge alone because I'm one of those people that I really enjoy the design of Dawn of War 3. Like, I have zero problems with base Dawn of War 3. Like, I absolutely love the game. But I'm a different kind of player. I'm a competitive 1v1 micro-oriented player. So, for me, it's different. Like, I'm the sort of person who doesn't mind if I get wiped out because I didn't dodge an ability. But, for a lot of people, that's really frustrating, especially in these kind of bigger games where you have a lot more units to manage and all that stuff. Like, also, I nerfed Retribution, so it's not crazy high damage, and so hopefully that'll feel better. It also doesn't knock units down as far, like it has less radius. And the reason for that is I felt like it was way too easy for Gabriel to just knock units back towards his army and get guaranteed squad kills. So I wanted to reduce basically a lot of guaranteed squad wipe stuff, and I wanted to kind of push people towards other units. I also nerfed las cannons a little bit. So their damage is about 65 instead of like 75 at max damage, and they're a bit more expensive. So in the mid game, you're not going to just spam las cannons because they're a lot more power cost. So it encourages you to get more units, or spend your power more wisely. The other thing I kind of want to address is how Dawn of War 3 is kind of the first Relic game where a lot of the vehicles cost really limited requisition, but a lot of power. Like Dreadnoughts are like 100 requisition, 300 power, that sort of stuff. I don't know if I want to change that necessarily, but I might tweak upgrades. So right now, like, vehicle upgrades are only requisition and infantry upgrades are only power, and I might try and balance it out a little bit more, especially now that I'm making health upgrades so significant. I haven't touched damage upgrades just yet, but you can see, like, these Terminators, normally that ability just wipes out units, but these units, they're dying. Like, it's still, there's lots of lethality, but, I feel like this is a lot better pacing for the game. I don't know. I feel like this, you just see constant fighting in this game, and, I'm really enjoying watching this, actually. Just seeing people just fighting all over the map. This feels like what people really want from a Warhammer game. And, I hope I removed a lot of the frustration where you just have entire units getting wiped out. You don't have, like, normally this building would be dead already from these Devastators and las cannons, but it's a lot more durable. So I feel like in the mid-game, this sort of vehicle health is really good, but in the early game it might be a little too tough, especially a 1v1. So, that's something I'm going to tweak balance-wise. I might also tweak heavy cover bubbles. I don't know. But yeah, you can see, like, even this building... It's taking a lot more effort to destroy these buildings, and that's something I really enjoy. I think that makes the pacing a lot better. It's a lot less, like, I guess detrimental to lose. Maybe one thing I will address is just making the buildings scale more with the vehicle upgrades and then start out lower health. Maybe that's the way to do it, or something like that. I think armor type's probably the better way, because then I can make it so if you want to counter buildings, you're going to build anti-vehicle units. Like, right now, they take, like, a decent amount of damage from anti-infantry. Oh, I guess we're getting a sink error at some point. That's kind of odd. I'm not sure why it's doing that, to be honest. Because I have the mod myself. It's kind of strange. But I don't know if I'm subscribed to the workshop. I think I am. Maybe that's something that might have an effect here. I changed Mega Knobs. Their combi rockets do a lot more damage now. Because I always felt like they were okay, but they were really mediocre. And Mega Knobs are something I don't see a lot of them, and I wanted to make them more appealing as a mid-game elite. So I wanted to really encourage you to loot this combi rockets. So I made them a lot stronger. So you really want to make sure you're looting the scrap more often with them. I see a lot of players just put them in melee stance and go to town, and that's fine. Like the electric wall is always really good, but I just want to make things that aren't useful, and make things that are too good not as good. And I want to increase the pace and improve the pacing of the game, because that was my big criticism of Relic. Is they never actually tried any of these radical changes to the gameplay. They just said, we don't know what to do, so we're just gonna do nothing for 6 months, and then we're gonna go radio silent for a few months, and we're just gonna abandon the game. Like, I'm extremely disappointed with Relic and how they handled Dawn of War 3. Like, I thought they were quiet because they were working on some ideas to really change the game, and it turns out that no, they just did nothing, and that just really pisses me off. I've supported Relic for years and years and years and years, and the way they've handled this is so sad, because the game is awesome. It has so much potential to be awesome, and I feel like people are really harsh on it, saying, "Oh, it's not a Dawn of War game," and it's like, I don't know what you're talking about, buddy. The game is very similar to Dawn of War 1 in a lot of ways, and it also takes a lot of the ideas from Dawn of War 2, and it's just really smartly designed in a lot of ways. Like, I know the lethality is the biggest issue people have, and like the pacing and stuff, but I feel like that's something that can be addressed by making stuff more durable, or that sort of stuff. So there's a way to fix Dawn of War 3 that just Relic never tried, in my opinion. And just watching this game kind of unfold is really interesting. Although I wondered to Sicker, maybe like people are AFK now. I don't know what this actually means. But this is kind of fun to watch, like just how many units are on the field. You got this guy's actually spamming a lot of Devastators, which is interesting because this is one of the things I wanted to really address with the power cost. Like, these guys are all 40 power each, so because he's doing that, he's probably got less of other stuff. But it's kind of interesting. Like, I really don't like when people spam Devastators in the mid to late game, especially I get why he's doing it because he's got Terminators. But that's something I really want to mitigate, because I feel like it's really easy just to spam like a 500 rec unit and 0 power and just get Dreadnoughts behind it, and that's something I really wanted to address. But he's still kind of managing it. But I think ultimately these guys, I think, are pretty low health, all things considered, compared to other units. So they do a lot of damage, but I think if they have a lot of weaknesses as well. So I think it's less powerful. But yeah, I really like seeing all these units everywhere. We got a lot of Assault Marines now, a lot less tax, and that's something I really enjoy. A lot less Las Cannons as well. You're seeing Las Cannons being used more as supporting rather than like entire armies of Las Cannons. So that's something I was really hoping for. You can see Orc guys actually having a bad day here with these units here. But so I think the Space Marine team is ultimately winning here. Orcs are having a bad day. And I do like to see these guys getting plasma guns and stuff instead of just relying on... The one thing is I'm really concerned about Flamers, because Flamers right now are in a weird spot where they're really powerful, but they're also counterable. Although plasma guns are totally counterable too, actually. If you throw the grenade on them when they're building up charge, it resets the charge, and it puts them in cooldown. So that's something to keep in mind. The Vendread, I also reduced his damage up because for some reason Relic just buffed his damage at some point to something like absurd, like 300 something, and it was absolutely retarded. It just way too much damage per shot. Right now he does. I think I reduced it to 207 per shot, like back where he was almost by default, and it just plays so much better that way. I really felt like they buffed his damage way too much. Way too much. Also, Gabriel's vehicle stun is a lot reduced. So instead of stunning for vehicles for 3 seconds with God Splitter, it's like 1 second or something. So he can't just keep jumping on top of them. One thing I'm debating, I don't know if I can do this, but I want to see if I can find a way to change the animation for God Splitter just to appease all the people that really don't like the backflip stuff or front flip. And maybe make it to like some sort of teleporter pack where he just teleports and does the hammer. But, that's not a priority for me. I don't really care about that issue, and it's so minor. But maybe that'll make some people happy. I don't know. So I guess my observations from watching this so far is I think forward bases are maybe a little too good. And I'm a little concerned about this Devastator spam in the mid to late game here. Maybe it's a little too much damage still. I don't know. But then again, there are tools to deal with this, like artillery and all that stuff. So, there are counters to this sort of stuff. Getting those 7-point elites like a Wraith Lord or a... Mega Knobs and all that stuff, that does provide really hard counters to this sort of playstyle. So I think this is just a case of the Orc players running out. Maybe Orcs are a little weak. Although Orcs, I don't know if they got their health upgrades as much as the Space Marines have. Dreadnoughts might also be a little too good now, just because they're tier 2 and not tier 3. So it's a lot harder to justify going to tier 3 for Predators. Although Predators should be a lot stronger now, just more health-wise, but I think Dreadnoughts are still tankier. So we'll see. I don't know. I think my first changes are going to be to reduce the building health and make it scale up more throughout the game instead of starting out really durable and scale up even more. Just so it's a bit less impactful in the early game. I want to tweak the objectives because I don't think we've seen anyone lose an objective yet or even get close to it. And you can see how much health. 16,000 health. That is a little insane. I really got to figure out how the escalation phases are functioning with this because it's some really obscure multiplier going on here. Like, I set the health to like 2,000 and suddenly they have 16,000. Like, holy shit. That's a little excessive for sure. And I definitely don't want them to be so tanky that you can't... I always liked that you could attack them in the early game. I just want it to be less... You know? Then again, you see how quickly the Gorkanat's going down in the late game. Maybe 16,000 health in the late game is totally fine. You know, I wonder about that. I guess, you know, I want more feedback on that. But for now, I think I'm going to tweak the health a little bit. And just make it, you know, a little less crazy. And then I want to do a bit of a balance pass on the 7-9 point elites. I want to do a bit more balance tweaks to... I want to make the health less jarring. Right now it's a little like... You get these health upgrades that are just massive boon to your army. Maybe I'm going to consider tying some of that to tech level. So maybe you're going to just get more durable with tech level as well, or something like that. You know, I want to avoid touching damage because it's a lot easier. I feel like health does a lot more to fix the problems than damage because, you know, if I reduce the damage by everything by like 20%, it starts to feel really crappy. Whereas I just give people more health, stuff that's going to do a lot of damage will still do a lot of damage. But then stuff like nukes, for example, are a good example. Nukes will still feel good, but then regular units will feel, the fights will last a lot longer. And I feel like this is still playing pretty decently. In terms of like the way the infantry is fighting right now, I'm really enjoying that. We do got a Predator out. Predator has a lot more health, and I do like that. So I feel like this is, ultimately this is playing a lot better in a lot of ways. But, you know, I do want to make sure these objectives aren't way too durable. And I do want to kind of discourage this sort of playstyle with all these Devastators. I don't want to make it impossible to do, but it is something, you know, I think is a little too good. So maybe the way to address that, I think, is just, I don't know. Because the Terminator's presence just makes this so powerful. Like, I guess it's fine, because it is counterable, but I feel like it's a lot of range DPS. And I do like the Predators being a lot more durable. I do like Def Compass being a lot more durable. Like, they got almost double the health here. 1,000 health. I really wonder why this is saying there's a sync error, though. I'm concerned. This orbital doesn't actually feel as impactful as it should here. But that could just be it's not really hitting directly. Scrap turrets do cause units to take more damage as well, so that is something to consider. Also, rear armor still exists. So, you know, I feel like the scrap turrets are still going to be useful. But I am a little concerned that Wasmach might be a little too weak now. I don't know. The ways to address that might be to... I don't know, because it's one of those things, right, where he still has like a 2,500 shield for a friendly unit. And that's always useful. Like, just put a shield on a friendly unit, make it super tanky. Like, that's always going to be powerful. So, you know, I want to be careful how I change the elites, because I feel like they're really powerful. The other thing is I'm worried whirlwinds and stuff might end up a little too weak with their damage output. So, that's something I might consider addressing, like fire prisms and stuff. Just with the way units are in the late game now, they're going to be way more durable. But, again, I don't want to make that stuff so impactful that just getting 3 whirlwinds wipes out entire armies constantly. So I think the big thing I want to focus on is escalation phases next. I want to figure out how those work and, you know, make tweaks to those to make the game play better. And I want to make the objectives more reasonable. I feel like this amount of health in the late game is probably totally fine, honestly. Because, like, you saw the Gorkana, he had 10k health, he got wiped out pretty fast. So 16k health, you know, that's going to be durable, but I don't think it's going to be monstrous. It's interesting to see, because I don't really know who's winning this game right now. Like, it looks like it's the Space Marine team, but, you know... The Space Marine team on the Space Marine guy on the Orc player is doing all right. The other thing I want to figure out, this is kind of something that's really tricky to do right now with the mod tools. I want to figure out how to edit the new elites and their abilities and stuff, because right now those aren't available in the mod tools. Basically, the entire October patch, none of that stuff is represented in the mod tools right now, which is really frustrating. But you Relic's probably not going to fix that at this point. They kind of fucked off. So I think there are ways to extract the files and edit them and then repackage them. I don't know if it loads properly into the game. I'm really, really, really hoping that I can find a way to make that work, because I want to nerf some of the Blazing Buzzsaw stuff. I feel like that stuff's way too impactful, but if I can't edit that stuff, that's going to really suck, because that stuff's always going to exist. But at least all that stuff is usable in the mod. You can still play with all that content. It's still there. It's just I can't edit it right now, which is frustrating. And I can't see a lot of the changes they made. So, for example, if I edit, say, I don't know, like Devastator's a good example. I edited Devastators, so I'm pretty sure their health was reverted to before the 30% health buff. But definitely, give them a lot of tries on the Steam Workshop. You find it really easy to search Exodus mod. Give it some try. Play some games. The weekly game nights, the Dawn of War 3 game nights, they're playing this. It's really easy to, once you subscribe, when you host a custom game, you can just toggle it, and there's a little option that says mods, and you just open the menu, click on the mod. So it's really easy to play with people. If you want to switch between using the mod and not, it's really easy to do. So, feel free to give it a try. Let me know what you think. I have a Discord channel. That's the link to that is, I'll put it in the description of the video as well. But it's also available on the Steam Workshop page, and I'll link to the workshop page as well. And I'm gonna work on this for a while, see how it goes. As long as people are playing it, I'll keep working away at it, because I really love this game. And I really don't want to see it die so soon. I played Dawn of War 2 for almost a decade now, like 9 years. I still play it occasionally. And I was so upset that Relic decided to abandon Dawn of War 3, because this was going to be my game for the next 4 or 5 years, and it's been barely a year and they're already pulling out. So I want to keep it going. I think there's a lot of potential for the community to keep playing and enjoying the game. So help me out with that. I want to make the game that people want to play. So I want to do what Relic failed to do, which is make the game fun for people that didn't like it, while without sacrificing the cool stuff that is here, like the elites and the really smart design of a lot of the faction stuff. Like, I really love how they designed the factions. I was so excited. I was so fucking excited to see them design another faction, like Necrons or Chaos or anything. Like, I really want to see Tyranids in Dawn of War 3. I feel like that would be way better than Dawn of War 2 Tyranids. So one thing I do want to look into, if I could ever find a way to port Dawn of War 2 assets into Dawn of War 3, just somehow, that would be amazing, because then I could do so much with that. But, that stuff's really locked down after COH2, because they wanted to sell DLC crap. So I don't know if that stuff's even remotely possible. Right now, it seems like balance updates and maps are all you can do. And, that's really disappointing. You can do some new abilities and stuff too, I believe. But it's a little tricky, because right now we haven't quite figured out how to load new files. So a lot of the ways people do new stuff is they take the single player stuff and they edit that stuff to whatever they want. And that's an option, but that's something I want to try to figure out. Maybe there's a way to do that. I don't know. It tends to crash the game if you make any new stuff, so maybe there's a way to get around that. I don't know. Hopefully, the community will find a way. But I am really liking how more durable stuff is. I really am not a huge fan of how little pressure there has been on the shield gen, because I always felt like that was a really cool thing in Dawn of War 3. Like, say your opponent was down here and he was destroying your generators, well, you could flank up here and get the shield gen and gotta equalize. I always liked that. And that's the other thing I did. I reduced the resource reward for killing objectives, but I want to keep the elite point reward, because I feel like that's really important, is to keep the elite point system, have momentum. But yeah, I might consider tweaking the elites. I feel like this is a little too squishy for these 9-point elites right now. Although this is a lot of las cannons, right? Las cannons I still want to tweak. I don't like how fast their damage ramps up. Like, these guys are all doing like 100 DPS each. That's a little crazy. So, I don't know. Las cannons are tricky because their ability, again, is really complicated. It's all really complicated. I have to figure it all out. I'm reverse engineering a lot of it, so it's going to take some time. So I'm going to see how quickly this actually goes down here, if he's going to focus on the shield gen here. I feel like this kind of late game, I feel like this amount of health is alright, because I want it to be roughly the same difficulty to kill shield gen at every stage of the game. I don't want it to instantly explode in the late game. Like, I know it's always going to be easier in the late game, but, I feel like this is a nice balance. Like if he had units in here and he was defending this would be a lot harder. But it looks like this team is just winning at this point. So I don't know. I'm gonna keep messing around with that. I did some very rapid changes. All these changes were made in the course of 2 days, and most of that was 1 day. This is all just stuff I managed to crank out in like 2 days before I had to leave for work and all that stuff, and get a quick release out just to see how it plays. So, definitely post your replays, play some games, let me know what you think on Discord or Workshop or whatever, because I do want to make the game people want to play. And I did really like watching this, just seeing how much like skirmishing there was. Like I feel like this amount of health, it looks like a lot, but in the mid game, this is the sort of army, this is gonna destroy this in a reasonable amount of time, especially if he gets the other units in there. So I feel like this is a nice balance. I feel like the turrets. I also increased the turret stun, so it stuns for a lot longer. And the reason I wanted to do this is I wanted to really punish attacking the turret without units that outrange it. So a lot of units will outrange the stun slightly. Like las cannons. Las cannons have reduced their range, so I don't think they do anymore. But predators will and all that stuff. So I really wanted to make the stun more punishing, a lot easier to defend a turret against, say, like 3 assault marines jumping on top of it, that sort of thing. And, I wanted to make these sort of buildings, like mech shop, like tech buildings, a lot harder to snipe. So they're a lot more durable, and I think I'm going to leave that alone. But I think I'm going to tweak the boys' hut and like those sort of structures that are just basic, cheap production structures. But I do like these structures being more durable, because it's a lot harder just to snipe it, and it's basically delay so much tech and all that stuff for so long. But you can see it's still dying really quick, right? So in the late game, these health values seem totally fine to me. The strongholds are more durable, which, they don't do anything. Like, you kill the stronghold, the only thing that stops is mass recall and this stuff. Like, it really doesn't do much. That's one of the things that kind of disappointed me. I really wish destroying the stronghold would, like, disable elites or something like that, And maybe that's something I could figure out how to do, I don't know. But I want to avoid doing that sort of stuff, because it's not really what the focus of the game is, I think. The other option in the future, too, is adding more game modes. So it's entirely possible I could change the resources to, instead of having to destroy generators, you could capture generators. And that would be really interesting, I think, for gameplay. The power core is also about twice as durable, which is still, oh wait, it has 17,000 health right now. See, the multiplayer is crazy. So it went from 2,000 to 4,000, now it has 17,000 because it's phase 4. Like, I really don't understand what the hell is going on in the background just yet. But, I do like that it's more durable, and it does regenerate until 35 minutes, so there's going to be a lot less, like, crazy backdoors. Like, backdoor is still going to be possible, but it's not going to be those situations where you have your entire army here, you're ready to defend, and then they just drop 3 dreadnoughts on you and kill it before you can kill them, right? So I wanted to make it more... If you have defensive units, you have a way better chance of defending your power core. But if you don't have those units, they're on the wrong side of the map, then you can still be backdoored. That's the middle ground. That's the balance I want to achieve. And the other thing I might address is the early game elites, just having them have some sort of way to scale better into the late game. But, I want to be careful with that. The way I'm thinking of doing that, I think, is with each tech tier, elites will get stronger. Roughly based on when they should come out. So, for example, I'm going to assume people tech at around, 10, 12 minutes. And then any elite that you should have before that will get a little bit of a health boost or something. I don't know. Maybe we'll have an upgrade for it. I don't know. I do want to make them scale better that way. But anyway, that's just my ramblings about the mod, and it's kind of a good example of a game going on with it. Those of you who've played more 3 vs 3 than me can see the pacing difference there. Personally, I like how the lethality is so much slower. I feel like a lot more people will enjoy that. Like, I always like the cutthroat lethality of the game, but it could also be really frustrating, where you miss a dodge on a Fist of Gork and your army's just dead. And, I'm someone who, I'm like, okay, I'll just build more units, I rebuild the units. But a lot of people are like, fuck, I lost my army, I guess it's game over, and they give up. Or they feel like they can't get back in the game. And especially in the mid to late game, once you start losing your army like that, you really can't get back in the game. Because you get less resources from refunds. So, I do want to address the mid to late game mostly. I feel like that's the weakest part of the game. But anyway, yeah, check out the mod, links in the description, and let me know what you think, and hopefully... we'll get the game to a really awesome place, and there'll be lots of people interested in playing it, at least, for a while, like I'm totally content to play the game of 100 people. Like, there's more than that probably playing, but as long as I can keep playing fun matches and I keep having fun with the game, I'm gonna keep playing. I'm gonna keep working on the mod, and I hope you guys will keep playing too. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.